Yeah, so I can share, I don't know how many of you have already seen the course development timeline document, and if you haven't, I'll just share my screen really quick. There are a few different documents. This one is just a very, very broad overview. We also have a more detailed Gantt chart showing the development of all three of these semesters and how they align. And then there's also an even more detailed checklist timeline. So essentially what we're looking at is a 22-week development. Can you all see my screen okay? Okay, yep. So this is the very, very broad, like 30,000 foot overview. A 22-week development that consists of one-on-one instructional design support and also consists of a training component as well. So we have asynchronous training modules that are paired with instructional design support on a week-to-week basis. Now, the actual flexibility of this timeline, again, we're all working one-on-one, so we don't necessarily have to stick to this in a rigid kind of way, but it is designed in a way where we can get your course built within 22 weeks, which should be plenty of time for 8 modules, and align all of the different content and take all the different considerations into mind that we need. And that also builds in a lot of wiggle room. I have at the end of each of these 22-week cycles, there's an additional 2 to 3 weeks before the beginning of the semester. So that way we can iron out any of the final details. We begin with the initial meeting, which we're having now. We'll start with a curriculum map, which we have a template for. So I think that we're in a unique position here because we are developing these courses within cohorts, and we're in some ways building them from the ground up so we can ensure that all of the courses are meshed together and align with each other. And this is where the curriculum map is going to be really handy because we can get a good idea of your objectives for the course and all of your assignments and assessments and how those things are intertwined. So starting with that, we work through the development of each individual module. That eventually gets us to the end of the 22-week development, in which we do a lot of the final details in Canvas, checking for things like accessibility, cleaning up the design of the course, the interface for students and that kind of thing. And there's also a course maintenance component to this as well. So after the course begins, we're going to be tracking student survey data. So there'll be a midterm survey and a final evaluation survey. We'll be taking students' input to help improve the courses. And we'll also be vetting the courses after they're taught using Quality Matters. And so if you're not already familiar, Quality Matters is an international organization for course design. And so we'll be using their rubrics and their standards just to make sure that the courses are up to par and make additional changes to them after they're taught. So this is a very, the way I envision this, this is a very hands-on approach. It's a one-on-one approach. My plan as your instructional designer is to work with each cohort. So the first cohort in Fall 1, for example, we have 4 instructors with 4 courses. So we'll all work together and design these courses as a unit so we can ensure that they are aligned and consistent in their design. So I have, like I said, I have lots of documents that I want to share with everybody, and especially the first cohort. The initial plan was to begin at the beginning of March. So I'm excited to jump into this. I don't know what everyone else's timelines look like. So we can obviously, iron out some of those details.
Aaron, if I may quickly piggyback on this thought, today is what, the 15th? No, 18th, 19th, right? I completely lost track of time.
Yes, the 19th. The
19th, right? So we have another give and take 8 to 10 days for this month. Because this is the first time many of these faculty members are actually reviewing this entire landscape because our first meeting. If there is a possibility that we take these 8 to 9 days as a little bit of a breathing space for the faculty to kind of get a broad view in their mind, especially the 4 faculty members who will be teaching in fall, to start thinking, okay, content wise, what is it, from a very broad scale, kind of articulate those thoughts, what goes into course description. Then we all start in the first week of March, kind of at the same level. And there is a lot more than just designing our classes. What we have thought about is to try and see, and it is not possible for all classes, but for certain scenarios, we can have kind of an interdisciplinary approach here in terms of the content that we are offering, and that has nothing to do on your end. It's more about what we design. So in the second half of fall, as an example, we are teaching a course in quantitative problem solving, which is an introduction to analytics class, and we are teaching a course in informatics, which are very keenly related to each other. They kind of build and the student needs to see that superimposition. And so Dr. Chow and I have had initial talks, and we may need a little bit of time on our end to see how to best attack this problem at hand, if you will, before we dive into the actual creation and the design of it. And that's why I know that in one of your documents, it said the next week is when we start. But if I may ask you to defer this by at least another week and give us this amount of space so that we can start in March, it will be most helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the 22-week development, like I said, it's flexible, and I think it's a really generous amount of time to put together one of these courses. But there's also the wiggle room too. So we've got, after that 22 weeks, there's 2 to 3 weeks before the semester actually begins. So I think we have plenty of time to get this done.
The other thing I want to mention, and again, this is thinking high. Okay, and we'll reach for the stars, land on the moon, right? So normally, as faculty members, especially in the Indiana State environment, we have taught smaller classes. Even for many online classes, our students have been 20, 25, oftentimes 15. And so, the content delivery has been very different, where we are able to provide a more personalized touch, being able to actively grade every single assignment by getting deeper into each one of those contents. And in an online MBA program, if our stars are bright, we may end up with 50 plus students, 75 students in the class. And so the content of that has to change. Right now, we don't have the luxury of resources that we can divide the class into 2 sections and bring in another faculty member. So when a faculty member is designing content, the content has to be designed in such a way that everything is streamlined, where the assignments, the assessments, the grading, it's already inbuilt into the system. In essence, in these 20 to 23 weeks, what we do is we shut it, fill it, forget it. So when the semester eventually begins, it just rolls according to the timeline that we created. And so that has to be the mindset for each one of us. And that's probably a bigger change personally for me, from how I have looked into managing students on a personal basis, one-on-one with their assignments, as opposed to creating something where it gets auto-graded kind of a deal. Because what if I have 75 students? I won't have the privilege of grading each one of them individually under these circumstances. And so to design that is where these 22 weeks will help us a lot.
Yeah, and I'll just add that as we work together, working on the structure of the course, the content of the course, also delivery is going to factor into this too, like Dr. B alluded to. So, I think we need to make some decisions as a cohort how exactly we want these to be delivered. They're asynchronous courses. A lot of the assignments and assessments are built in already, but we can obviously still have contact with our students, right? So, we'll think about like things like online office hours, optional synchronous sessions, some pedagogical strategies like that as well.
That is exactly what I alluded to the syllabus language. If you noticed that there would be a regular office hours that we normally continue to hold, because many of us are already teaching other classes as well. So we'll have office hours. Under these circumstances, that will have a Zoom component to it. But specifically to this group, maybe a certain hour time during the weekend dedicated to that group so that they can come in synchronously and have questions will be a big value add, because they don't get this in other online programs.
So I have a quick question. Is this a good time to ask? So one of the things that I keep thinking about is, everybody and their cousin is offering online MBA programs. So we have to ask ourselves, how are we setting our program apart in some way, shape, or form? So Kuntal, you pointed out a couple of things that I really like: the Zoom sessions, because students like interacting, at least in a small way, with the person teaching the course, rather than that person being the Wizard of Oz hidden behind a screen, so to speak. So I have a couple of ideas that I want to run by all of you to see what your thoughts are. One other way of really adding value is bringing in speakers to the classes. I mean, this would really add value, particularly in the global business strategy, I'm sure in other areas as well. And you notice that sometimes you bring a speaker in and they're fantastic. I mean, it's chock full of substance, it's relevant to what you're doing, and you can connect the dots. And sometimes you bring in a speaker and it's just a lot of fluff. So my question is there a way that, if we bring in a speaker, we record with their permission, and if it's a good one, we put it into a central repository for later reuse. And then if we build up this digital library of, and so all those things should have like a format, like they shouldn't be longer than X minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, and maybe have some kind of structure. I really like the structure you're suggesting for the syllabus, some kind of commonality, and it should clearly link up with the content, and also the person doing the talking should have substance and relevance to what is being taught. So this is my first point, and then I have another question. I'll let you answer this. Thank you.
So this is already in the making, Arunadi, and I think we talked about this in another meeting, that we want to have a central repository that adds to that value perspective for the student. So in an asynchronous setup, it is harder to bring a speaker at everybody else's time, right? But if a speaker is brought in another class and that piece is recorded and that recording is available to all the online students, so the expectation is that, very similar to what we have in Blackboard, we'll have on Canvas a specific section that is outside of our courses, which is a repository for MBA students. And what this allows is give them small modules to understand the basics of business. There are multiple students who will be in this program who do not necessarily have a business background. People from STEM, engineering, other fields are also trying to do their MBA. And yes, they will learn the tricks of the trade through our business core tools, but if we can provide short snippets of 5 or 6 modular videos on each of those business segment areas, and that they can review at their own time just to get their feet wet, that would be a fantastic value add. And on an ongoing basis, every single speakers that we bring, as an example, to the MBAA session, all of those are recorded. Those are specific areas that those recordings will go in. And the best part is, now, if you find a specific recording on a topic that aligns with yours, you can put it and build it into your class as well, because all of you will have access to it. We have that as part of our supply chain program, and we have a lot of resources in a repository that all of us faculty use if needed in our respective classes.
And similarly, sometimes you find such good resources on YouTube videos.
Absolutely.
Like there's a Michael Porter video, and I feel like I'm bringing a Harvard professor into the class. That 13-minute video is just so good and so rich. That could be used for class discussion. So we share common, I use a lot of readings from The Economist, to integrate current events because global business is so dynamic as a strategy. So we could have a repository for this kind of information. My second point was when I've done book reviews of global business strategy books, I've reviewed a ton of those in the past. One of the things that I would recommend is that have like a leitmotif, something that connects the chapter. So instead of using 10, 20 different examples, use something new, but use something old as well. So a connecting case. Is that, you talked about Gian and you working on a case with a connection.
No, we have not. We have not, but I have in the past. So there is this beautiful Harvard Business Review case called the AAA supply chain. It was written by Dr. Hao Lee. Anybody who has heard of the term bullwhip effect will know that it was Dr. Lee who actually made that term. And so what I did along with Kim Lagrange at that time, we were teaching in the professional MBA program in that same cycle when she was teaching the human resource class and I was teaching the operations class. And we built on that single case and she designed it from a human resource perspective and I designed it more from an operations supply chain perspective. The same cohort of students got a breadth of that knowledge base from two different angles, from two different lenses, from the same topicality. So those are areas that we can nurture, and I'm pretty sure from an informatics analytics standpoint, we will be able to find those common grounds. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Aaron. This is Wiki here. I have a question for you. I noticed in the end of your training schedule, you mentioned that those folks who have completed the training program before don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I guess most of us, the faculty member who are going to teach in the fall, have completed that certification online training. So my question is, for those of us who have already completed this certification, do you have another schedule, or do you just, it's going to be just a kind of case by case basis?
Well, so by completing the certification, if you're talking about the online teaching certification, those newer modules, those asynchronous modules, then yeah, so if you've already done that, that's awesome because that gives us a foundation from which to work. And as far as development schedule goes, I mean, we have those trainings built in, but if you've already done them, excellent. There's no need to review them unless you actually want to. I know some people in the class have completed the online instructor certificate course, which was the one that we were holding where it was a 10-week development course and you were paid a stipend for taking it. So if you've completed that, the modules that we have built into the course development schedule now are actually different. They are like a more condensed version of the OACC, basically. So again, if you've completed it, great. And if you want to review those modules as a refresher, that would be awesome because like Dr. B said at the beginning of the presentation, we're moving to Canvas. And so these new online and teaching certificate modules that we've built are tailored specifically to Canvas in a lot of ways. So this will be a good refresher, I think, if you want to review those. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Also, those modules, just to reassure you guys, each one of those online teaching modules that we have listed in the document that Aaron showed you, they're roughly an hour long. They're not like the 10-week class that you've taken. So these modules are very short. They're just meant to engage and run you through some information and refresh your memory. So it will not take you the difficulty that the length and difficulty that the other class took.
And this one, Sam, is starting March, the ones that we are talking about, right?
Actually, they can start them now if they want to. They're all online and available. They're all asynchronous, so you can do them at any point in time that you would like.
And Aaron, could you share that link in the chat window here real quick for all of us?
So
yeah, sure.
And you will, if you choose to do those, we track it and you will get another certificate for your FAD or your CV or whatever you want to use it in.
Thanks, Chilla.
Chilla beat you, Aaron.
Every time, huh?
quick on the draw.
Any other question? Go ahead.
I actually have a quick question. Dr. B, have you already sent out your syllabus template file to the rest of the faculty?
Yes, so this is, except for the presentation that I made, everything else is in the meeting notice. You'll see the attachments. All of the attachments are there.
Okay. Well, the only reason I'm asking about it because accessibility is going to be one of the main standards that we will try to meet in terms of quality matter standards. And looking at your file, I am not sure that the accessibility standards checker, that function has been run on the file, and we might have a couple of recommendations in terms of what we recommend for our campus and what to include and where. And that those might be some good conversations with Aaron, since he's the project lead on this at this time, that you may want to have first before faculty start jumping on that original file and start modifying that.
Okay.
That's just a kind remark, and please keep that part in mind.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I didn't see any attachments. Dr. Paul, I agree with you. I didn't see any attachments in the meeting invite.
Me neither.
So somehow they might have gotten missed or dropped or something. So just to let you know.
So I shall ensure that everybody has access to that. And Chilla, going back to your comment, are you meaning the for all of those specific headers, the arrangement of that, is that what you're talking about?
Headers are just one element of accessibility. If you go to info, check for issues, check for accessibility, it'll run a report. It comes up on the side and it'll tell you exactly where there might be some accessibility issues, but that's part of our training and conversation.
Absolutely.
Before you establish something like that.
Absolutely.
And where we recommend including maybe even the instructor profile.
Yeah. This is a first pass. My expectation out of this is twofold. One is to ensure that at the end of the day, the syllabus that we come up with, especially for this online MBA program, looks and feels the same. End of story. Okay, as long as that happens, I have no problem. And of course, some of this content from an MBA perspective ought to happen. So the instructor profile, that positioning of that content within the page can change, but that has to be there somewhere. Okay, so that's one thing. Two is, while we are starting to work on that course description, the reason I talked about this is it also has a dotted line connection to the catalog language for course descriptions. And if the faculty starts working on it now, then on the marketing end, at least for the course description piece of the puzzle, we will have a better shape. And that is the first thing that I'm asking the faculty to attack, just the broad course description piece of the puzzle.
And many of the things that you said when you were talking through your syllabus align with things that we follow and teach and stuff. So we're all on the same page with you, Dr. B.
Sure.
Thank you.
So I shall send a note out with all the attachments very soon. Sorry, Wei, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Kunta. Are we expecting any kind of side effect this online MBA program on our regular on-campus program?
Any kind of what?
Side effect of this new online program on our regular on-campus MBA program?
Okay, that's a loaded question. If
Yeah.
you are talking about cannibalization, we are trying our best to ensure that we meet the students' different needs. There are certain students who absolutely need the face-to-face conversation, that face-to-face element. The online MBA program does provide the student an opportunity to finish in 1 year, in one physical year if need be. Now, going back to the course description, the reality is, irrespective of whether somebody does one online versus on campus, it is still an MBA that they're earning. And so any prospective candidate looking to earn an MBA, as they go through the MBA courses, that course description should still be the same. I just want to make sure that they are current, that anybody who is looking at it is not looking at language from 20 years back. And if we have an opportunity to revise the curriculum, to revise the content, then this is our time to change that language for the course description. Now, I am not sure if this exactly answers your question. Is this something you are
Well,
looking
let
for?
me be a little bit more specific. What if a graduate, new fresh graduate of our undergraduate program who say, hey, I want an MBA, but I like the online program. I don't want to be regular MBA on campus because I'm going to find a job and then support myself for the online study. Well, economically, that would be the best choice for me. So in that case, are we going to take such candidates to this online MBA program?
Yes, yes, we will. We will. Again, the requirements, and as you saw in the previous meeting that we had for the admission requirements, those requirements for the MBA have been updated, and those requirements remain the same. This was exactly the discussion that I had yesterday with a student that Ashley and I were having at the career fair, and this student said, "Okay, fine, I'm graduating. What do you recommend for me, Dr. B? The regular MBA or the online MBA?" And so that is then a very case by case basis. My recommendation is, if a student stays within a 50-mile area or campus, 50 miles within campus, and the student is capable of driving to campus, then the on-campus MBA makes for a better sense, given the evening classes and the flexibility that we offer for a longer period of time. If the student is in a hurry, then the student would want to get this done in an online environment. If the student is more than 100 miles away from campus, of course, the online MBA provides more flexibility to the student. Um, but that's all I could say at this point of time.
All right, I got you. Thank you.
Kuntal, I have a quick question about, could you give us an update on what's going on with the Plainfield MBA? Because even if it's on pause, the students that are already there, they need to complete.
They will complete.
And I don't see that, sorry?
They will complete. They are finishing off in summer. They are taking the summer classes.
Okay. And
so
then
this summer, the Pro MBA, yes, and that cohort is done. We are just not accepting any new cohort at this point of time. But answering your question, Arunadi, I have personally talked to many of those cohort students, and there is a need for that kind of delivery. It is just that our resources are constrained at this point of time. I really, really look forward to get that started again.